California does not have drought conditions.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I heard about that. And it's just interesting because I just finished reading a book about the, oh my gosh, the Dust Bowl. That was a
Oh,
big one.
yes.
That was really sad. So okay, so welcome everybody. Happy New Year to everyone. It's a blast to be here, all of us together. I know that we continued some of our services here, but it's always precious to be here with you all for us to pray and to be together. Um, Before I just show our opportunities to be together, I would like to ask our sister Tanya to do our opening prayer for the year.
What an honor to be here and to be able to start this new day in the new year and the first service of the 2026. We know that the blessings of our Heavenly Father is already done for the 365 days. We are the day 10th, I believe. And how blessed we are. So I invite all of you, my beloved brothers and sisters, to, with such love and gratitude for the energy of the 2025, for all the lessons, difficulties, lessons, trials, and a lot of renovations, motivations. And we want, Father, to give you the blessings, the hardship of 2025. And we thank everyone in the spiritual world and spirit and physical world who has participated with us in that energy. So who else or what else that is in need, we want to just to move forward in our daily life. And so thank you, 2025. And we are here, welcome this beautiful year of 2026. This is the number one, the beginning, starting everything. So it is time for us to reinforce in our own selves our new agreements with our divine higher self, with our divine soul. What do we come to do here? And what we want to manifest in this beautiful 355 days ahead of us. So, Lord Jesus, we love you. We ask always for your guidance, for your protections, for your illumination. And we ask you to bless our spiritual growth, the spiritual growth of this family, spiritual family of BS8 Center, Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center, to be open the doors to the news who will come to join us, for those who have participated in walking with us through this journey. And we ask for your divine guidance, Father. Let us be even closer to one another, even open to the divine blessings and lessons that our group workers of the lights bring to all of us. I ask the blessings of our dear sister who comes to bring the message to us, our sister Theresa. And once more time, let we hug each other in spirit with such love and gratitude for being here one more time. And so be it, so it is.
Yes.
It is. Amen. Thank you, sister. All right, everyone. So as we were saying, Welcome to Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center in this beautiful Sunday morning. Here, I do have to update the website, and I'm sorry, it will be updated by the end of the day today. But here are all the opportunities that we have for us to be together. So Sundays, 10 to 11:30-ish. We have always the educational presentation at first, and then we have the healing passes. Everybody's welcome to stay. If you are on YouTube, you can stay on prayers, or you can click on this link up here, and you will be able to join us and participate on the healing passes too. We also have daily prayers, 6 p.m. Everybody's welcome to join us. 15 minutes for us to give and receive good energy for the world. We do have fraternal counseling. This one is by appointment only. So if you're going through anything and you need to vent, discuss, have someone to pray with you, by all means, don't feel that you're alone. We are here to be with you. Let us know if you cannot make this time. You can let us know, and we'll make sure that we can assign someone to talk to you. We do have news on the book study groups. So let me start with what we already have. So on Sundays, we are still reading the Missionaries of the Light, written by André Luiz via Chico Xavier. On Tuesdays, we are still studying the book The Consoler by Emmanuel via Chico Xavier. This study is done in collaboration with the Divine Light Spiritist group, which is led by our dear sister Sunshine. Everybody's welcome to join us at the same Zoom link. On Wednesday, we will have a new study coming soon. Stay tuned. In February, we will start the book, Paul and Stephen. And it's an amazing book, a beautiful transformation. Everybody's welcome to join, even if you have read the book before, because it's going to be, as any other study, very enlightening, full of discussions. So stay tuned for the day. It's going to be beginning of February. And on Thursday, we are reading the book Living Spring, an amazing book by Chico Xavier. And then on Mondays, we do have mediumship services. This mediumship service starts at 6:30 p.m. The first part is educational. It's only educational. But if anyone is interested in joining this one, please, you have to do the introduction to Spiritism first. And we'll discuss about that later. But you have to be invited to be on this one. And the second part, it's not open, not even for students, but this one is a service that we offer for those who are in need physical treatment or spiritual treatment. So this is done by the means. If you or anyone you know is in need, let us know, give us the name of the person if they need spiritual treatment, physical treatment, and this person will be in treatment for at least 4 weeks. We highly encourage the person to stay tuned during this moment, so to make sure that they are open for the service who will be given to them. So please make sure to use the tool that is available for all of us. And without further ado, today we will hear from our dear sister Theresa. We all know her very much. And she will be talking to us about Law of Freedom Part 2, which is a topic from the Spirit's book. So help me to give her a warm welcome. God bless you, sister. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki, and Happy New Year to everybody. And thank you for this opportunity to do this presentation this morning. And I think I'm going to ask, as Regina asked in the last session, that we hold our questions and comments till the end. Otherwise, we don't get to a question and answer period. Okay, I'm sorry, but let's say that's time for that. So have a piece of paper or something you can write things down as they come up. All right, so we're going to be talking today about, again, the second part of the Law of Freedom. And Sister Regina started us, we ended the year with her beginning the Law of Freedom, and now we're going to begin the new year with the ending of the Law of Freedom. And Regina talked to us about natural freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and free will. If you weren't here for that presentation, I would encourage you to take a look at it on the website. It was a beautiful presentation. Well done. So we are going to talk about these questions this morning, and our topics are going to include fatalism, foreknowledge of the future, the driving force behind human action. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to be able to see you guys. So if there is, someone's going to have to just speak up because I'm good, so I can see my screen better. Okay. So the topics are fatalism, foreknowledge of the future, and the driving force behind human action are the topics today. And so when we look at fate, destiny, we can kind of use these words interchangeably, but yet there is a little bit of a difference. And you can see just by the definitions I have here, fate being the development of events beyond a person's control, regarded to be determined by a supernatural power. And we use many times fate is looked as something more negative, kind of a doom gloom kind of thing, where destiny is the events that will necessarily happen to a person in the future, and it's kind of looked at as a positive thing, like his success, her title, whatever. But we often use them interchangeably. But then we have to ask, what is fatalism? So if we look at a simple definition, it's the belief that all events are predetermined and therefore inevitable. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when I came into Spiritism, or have studying Spiritism for over 10 years now, I was always told there's no fatalism in Spiritism. And so, does this apply to Spiritism? And I asked, why is Kardec using this language? And when I kind of looked a little bit further, fatalism, of course, the idea, the concept is, from ancient civilizations, Egypt, Rome, Greece. But the peak of fatalism as a concept was in like the 1950s, 1960s. And to some of us, that may seem like a long time ago, but to many of us, that's not so long ago. So I think going forward in this presentation, if we can think about fatalism in terms of cause and effect, I think that's the big take-home message after reading these questions and answers. So let's just look at what Spiritism wants to tell us. So again, fatalism, and what I tried to do to shorten this up a little bit is clump some of the questions together, because as we know, Kardec covers his basis, and he asked the question in different ways, repeated, just to get the same answer. So as he was a wise educator. So out of these questions, 851, 853, 859, the spirits answer and say, they kind of agree there isn't fatalism, but to the extent of the meaning of the word, they say it only occurs in that we will incarnate, we will discarnate, and we have an incarnatory plan and the great sorrows. These are going to happen. And so when they talk about the incarnatory plan, the physical trials, what they mean is that, okay, so we decide, we're going to be wealthy, or we're going to, have some disabilities. But as far as the moral trials and temptations, this involves our free will. So none of us are coming with an incarnatory plan that says, oh, I'm going to be a generous person. No, maybe we want to work on our generosity. And so we set up the kind of the external things that are going to bring us those hardships or those trials. But we don't come in with a, how to say, oh, I'm going to be generous, I'm going to be loving, I'm going to be charitable. Those things are based on our free will, and we use our free will. So when we talk about incarnatory plans, that there are choices, they're talking about physical trials. And then the great sorrows. So these are events that must necessarily occur. Our free will cannot prevent them. And why? Because they're useful for our moral evolution, to purify and educate. They do tell us, though, that we are made aware of them prior to incarnation. So we are aware of them. And I think, many of us know this in our own lives, what we face, great losses, great pains, different things in our life that we faced, and how they maybe changed our view or changed our being in some way. So I think we can all understand what these great sorrows are. And many times it's the death of someone in a family, or miscarriage, or so on and so forth. But they are going to happen, and our free will cannot intervene in that. So I wanted to stop here for a moment and take a pause, because one of the things that Kardec says is, he says, oh, wait a minute. So you're telling us that we face all these dangers in life, but we're not going to die until it's our time. And pretty much the Spirit says that's true. And, we kind of get guidance from our mentors and about when we're in danger. And so we are not going to die until it's our time. But then we do. So, for example, right, 9/11. Somebody works in the towers day in, day out, but they happen to not be there at 9/11. Why? It wasn't their time to die. We've all heard these stories. There's someone who has a heart attack, but he happens to be in the hospital and he doesn't die from the heart attack because it wasn't his time. But then we look at, but wait a minute, what about these people who willfully take their own lives, suicide? And so we know that this can happen, right? So it's not like, um, the spirits were pushing the idea that, you won't die until it's your time. So we know that this can happen. And so I just want to bring up this person, Christian Sundberg, and you can YouTube him and listen, because he talks about his memory of where he did just the opposite. He didn't take his life, he didn't kill himself, but in his in on his way in incarnating, he changes his mind, and he actually goes, back to the spiritual world and talks about the whole story, and how, same like a suicide, he comes to learn why, this is not okay, and understand the disharmony that he caused, and so on and so forth. And even though it's not a spiritist person telling this, it's very much in line with the spiritist doctrine. And he describes his pre-birth memories, choosing to come to Earth with the help of his guides. He shares that consciousness transcends form and gives rise to form. The contrast of this level of separation enables an incredible opportunity for expansion of love and joy. We have the power to choose to meet great difficulties with love instead of fear, and heal our lives where there is not peace. It is the resistance to the context in life that can make it so painful. Our true nature is that we are beings of freedom, love, power, and joy. And this is just what we learn in Spiritism. So I bring these up for us to consider. And so we can understand that when the spirits are talking about fatalism, it's this cause and effect. This is a big take-home message today, that it isn't anything that's happening to us that we're victims of. And also the idea that when they talk about our incarnation, our discarnation, that these ideally are the way that they're set up to be. But yes, we do have our free will. And so we can see how it happens there. But then also we learn, and we've learned this from the book Heaven and Hell, many of the Andre Louis stories, that to take one's own life is out of alignment with God's will. And so there are consequences. And just as if you listen to this, if you go to YouTube and just put in Christian Sundberg or even Rebirth Memories, it will come up. It's a very moving recording, and I do think it is very real. And here also his humility as he speaks about what he learned in this choice that he made. Okay, so let's move on. And so then, let's see. So then we look at fate, which again, we're going to say cause and effect. And in here, here's another take-home message. This is it. Our trials, our afflictions, our hardships, we choose pre-incarnation. We know about it before coming in. So they say avoid blaming, avoid victimhood. But they do say we can console ourselves by a clear conscience. And how do we do that? We do that with the nightly review, as St. Augustine tells us in question 919 in the Spirit's book. However, I also would like to bring up, just the other night in Miss Gina's class, we were studying the Gospel according to Spiritism, which was chapter 8, which is on Blessed are the pure in heart. And it was on a section entitled Scandals. And The topic came up that, a man was having a wife, he was a well-known man, publicly known, was having an affair with someone and didn't want to get found out and had her husband murdered, and he seemingly got away with it, and, nothing ever happened to him. But what the spirits went on to say, or not even the spirits, it was Kardec actually, is he said that if we, more or less, if we don't look and we do something rude and it's not brought to our attention or there's nothing made of it, we can seemingly in our mind think we've gotten away from it or away with it. And we can start justifying in our mind, like, it's okay to do that. We don't have to make an amends. And we can just kind of move on. So I guess the point that I'm making here is that it really is up to us to look. And the thing that Kardec goes on to say is the cause behind this is our pride. So, for example, I make a rude remark to someone in the Zoom meeting, and I never go back and apologize because nobody says anything, and I say, "Oh, well, she's kind of a jerk anyway," or whatever. This is a justification process. This is not a self-review, and so it really is up to us to review ourselves and take a look. Okay, and then. So I wanted that reminder, that first one is really a big take-home message for us that, no place for blaming or victimhood. We choose our trials before coming in. So they go on to tell us that good and bad luck doesn't exist, and most of us know this. And they say it's a matter of, are we looking at ourselves materially or spiritually? Because you might find someone who appears to have bad luck. They're CEO of a company after company after company that fails. And so you think, oh my gosh, they have bad luck, or they're not doing something right, they're failing. But the spirits point out that no, in fact, this could be a material failure, but it's a spiritual gain, because part of their incarnatory plan was to learn how to have resignation and patience. And so these failures, so to speak, that we would call them, are really what they set up before coming in. So again, it's reminding us we really cannot judge. And also, Joanna DeAngelis, when we talk about luck, good and bad luck, or coincidences, she says that coincidences are there to ensure that things that are supposed to happen happen. So I just think that's a nice way that Joanna gives us to look at that. Okay, so then success can be a trial or a temptation. So the spirits go on to say what they mean by this is that, sometimes we don't work within our own potential. And they give us the example of someone who would be successful as a laborer and make a good living, but yet because of their passions, they want to be an artist and they end up starving to death because they can't support themselves. So, they're bringing it back again once it's kind of our choosing and what we do with our will. And then I thought this was interesting. So of course they're pointing out, it's our choice and our responsibility, and it kind of and it is the consequence of what we choose. But then you would think the opposite they would say that the success is probably, due to people's merit. And it's very interesting to me that they do not say this in this chapter. Well, I should say this number, I think it's 867. And I don't know, maybe it might in your book, because I know publications can be different, but they talk about good guidance, self-guidance, that somebody, which I guess would be another word for merit, but I just thought it was very interesting that they never use the word merit. That, when we see some people and we look and see how successful, to realize they have merited this in perhaps a previous life, maybe this life, we don't know. Okay, so then we move on and they talk about fatalism, and again, cause and effect and death. And so again, they say that the moment of death we can see as fatalism because, at that moment, it's not going to change. They say that the kind of death that we will experience is frequently revealed to the spirit prior to incarnation. So again, I just bring back that idea of, 9/11, the person works their day in and day out, but they're not there that day because it was not their moment to die. There's a house fire, everyone dies in the house, but the one person who was in some weird closet that didn't go up in flames. It's those kind of things that tell us it was not that person's time to die. Good spirits inspire precautions to avoid death. And so Kardec kind of asks, well, is this kind of true for all of our accidents that happen to us that, we're not going to die until it's our time? And he says, yes, but the spirits also point out is that usually when we're in dangerous situations, most of the time when we look back, we've gone off balance somewhere, and it's related to some kind of wrongdoing or perhaps neglecting a duty. So then they talk about death presentiments, inspiration versus intuition. So inspiration would be when the guardian angel or benefactor is kind of telling us, don't turn right, or don't drive to that place, or get your tires checked on your car. And then intuition can be that reminder that comes from within. Um, and they give us an example, or not an example, but they say the reason for this can help us in preparing for death. And they talk about like soldiers on a battlefield where, if it is their time, that to help them prepare. And if it isn't, they say oftentimes we know that. And I've heard many people say, I was in this danger or that danger, but I just knew it wasn't my time to die yet. So oftentimes we know this. And that the spirit does not dread death. Incarnates foresee death. And then they talk about spirit versus physical entity. So what they're saying here is that Kardec says, well, if this is going to happen, then why do people dread death? Why are we afraid of it? And the spirits pretty much come back and say, well, the spirit doesn't dread it. It's the incarnate. It's that materiality that they say, if you think of in spiritual light, then you will not fear death because you know the immortality of the soul, which is one of the principles of Spiritism. But if you're thinking from a material aspect of what will happen to me, I'm going to die, I'll just fade away. That's, thinking from a materialistic point of view. And then I guess I should also bring up that this idea of fatalism, that things are going to happen and we can't control them and they're just destined to happen. So the thing that's so wrong about that, or why we don't really promote true fatalism in Spiritism, is because it leads to helplessness, that there's nothing I can do, so there's nothing I will do. And from that can lead into nihilism, where life has no meaning. So this is why I think all of us has heard that there isn't fatalism in Spiritism. So, again, I think the correct verbiage would be cause and effect. All right. So then we look at cause and effect, so fatalism, and free will. And so, let's see here. Okay, so they start out these questions by telling us, doing good is our duty and our sole purpose of life. So when they're talking about duty, they're talking about moral obligation. Okay, so they're not talking about our paid job. Through human will and effort, events can be avoided that are to occur, and vice versa. So events that are maybe not so good that are going to occur, we can, through our effort and our free will, we can change them. And things that are not going to occur, we can change them as well. But there's a condition. It has to be in alignment with our pre-incarnatory plan. So it can't be so, opposite that it's not in alignment. So I think that, one thing that comes to my mind is Joanna DeAngelis says that we should be grateful for not only the things that happen and we have, but those things that we don't have and that don't happen to us, we should also be grateful for them. And I think this applies here. Out of this, we can understand that no one is predestined. No one is predestined to commit suicide. No one is predestined, to do wrong. And they give it the example of murder. That yes, when we commit suicide, when we are a murderer, we will have to face that again as a trial, but we're not predestined. So we come up against it. And again, we have the ability to use our free will to choose. So no one is predestined to do wrongdoing. But I think another example that could explain this is, say it was part of my incarnatory plan that I'm not going to have children, but then I do come into the world and I end up adopting a child. So therefore, I do, in a sense, have a child, but it's in line with my pre-incarnatory plan because it's good. I'm helping. Maybe this child was orphaned, just giving a rough example of what they can be talking about. So then they go on to say, social customs and opinions of others influence our free will. This is true, but they also say that submitting to them is an act of free will. So they remind us that when we sacrifice to public opinion, this doesn't count. This is not like working for or against us, but they say sacrificing to our vanity counts. And so I think one of the things that we learn from Emmanuel in Thought and Life under the chapter of habit is that there's an illusion that we need to have other people like us. Now, I'm not saying this is that we shouldn't have people like us, but we can make this so important that we let the influence of others affect how we use our free will. And I think a good example of this would be during the dilemma of vaccinate versus not vaccinate. We can see how, oh, well, I'm just going to do it because everybody else is doing it and I don't want to lose my job. Or, I'm doing this because I've researched it and I believe it's really the right thing for me, even though all my friends around me are not doing it or they don't believe in it or conspiracy theory or whatever. So there's the difference, is that we choose for ourselves. And so they're making a big point to tell us this, that, we can't, kind of get out of it by saying others made me do it. We have chosen our trials. So the more difficult the trial and the better we bear them, the more we evolve. So this is another take-home message from this section of the Law of Freedom. So we have chosen our trials. The more difficult the trial and the better we bear them, the more we evolve. And of course, we're never alone in preparing to come here. And so I want to turn now to this book, Missionaries of the Light, which we are studying on Sunday. And it's chapter 12, Preparing for New Life Experience. And so let's talk about this reincarnatory plan. So, because we're hearing this, well, you decide this before you come in, you knew about this. And so what does this mean? So they're telling us that indebted spirits, which is us, you and I, all of us here, are able to participate in our reincarnatory plan when we possess goodwill, perseverance, and sincerity. So we can assume that until we have some measure of this, we aren't really participating. It's probably the higher order spirits. And, we kind of know this about like primitive souls, that they're kind of, with their love and compassion guiding the plans and the processes. And then they tell us that, so when spirits when a spirit's rebirth is purely for evolutionary purposes. And what do they mean by that? So the spirit's not returning to the earth under bitter circumstances. And in the book, they give us the story of a group of people that are returning under bitter circumstances, and they describe it as the one murdered the other one, had an affair with the other one, and so they kind of all died in this bitter state. And so when they are reincarnating, they're coming back to Earth under bitter circumstances. So when we're just coming back for evolutionary purposes, probably like most of us here, there's a standardized format that's followed with the blessed assistance from the workers in the reincarnation department. So we're always getting assistance. Now, those that are coming back with bitter circumstances after death, so they've murdered, they've probably committed suicide, we can think of these more intense events. And also at the time of death, they're in this state of being, the state of mind. So what happens when they come to reincarnate is, first of all, they have to have clear reasoning. So they don't have to necessarily be enlightened, but they can't still be thinking that they're king of the lower zone or whatever. So they have to have clear reasoning. Makes sense, because they're going to receive intercessory work and strong aid from the spiritual plane. So like no solar, they're living in a spiritual colony and they're getting aid. And they need to have the approval of their promises regarding redemptive work from the higher order benefactors. So it's almost like they got to get it notarized, their incarnatory plan. So I just thought this was good to bring up because I don't know, I often wondered, like, well, when does one get to participate in their incarnatory plan? And did I actually participate? I hope so. So I'm thinking I did, but I don't know. They tell us here if we have goodwill, perseverance, and sincerity. Okay, so now we go to the next topic, that is knowledge of the future. And so they tell us that in principle, the future is hidden from humans. And why? To help us to focus on the present, enable us to act with freedom, and to accomplish tasks. Because why? We're co-creators. And we knowingly prepare the events that occur over the course of our lives. And I think all of us can acknowledge this when we look at our own biography, and we can see the patterns that continually repeat themselves throughout our life, or we can see the stepping stones that, oh, this happened first and then that, and oh, I see now why that happened because it led me here. So this is why they're telling us that we unknowingly, so we may not be consciously aware of it, that we prepare the events that occur over the course of our lives. Why? Because we were involved with that and with our plan. So sometimes God allows the future to be revealed. And why? To facilitate the accomplishment of a task, to enable a person to act differently. And the foreknowledge can be a trial. And what does this mean? So, for example, if somebody is going to have an inheritance, they're saying if they were to know about this in the future, they say it could go either way. One, maybe it might spike the presentiments of, oh my gosh, now I can really take care of all these other people who are having, hardships in their life and be generous. Or they might say, oh, all the things I can do with this money. And if I kill the person faster, or, if I kill the person, I can get the inheritance faster. And so this can, lead to very negative sentiments. So this is how it gets decided if people are to know about the future or not. So they're not talking about the faculty of like foresight or clairvoyance. They're not talking about that here. Okay. And then they say the purpose of a trial. So what is the purpose of a trial? It is to bear responsibility for our conduct via use of our free will. So it's the opportunity to use our free will, and we are responsible for the action that we take. And then also this idea of, will we merit or will we need to expiate? So it's, and this shows the, mercy and also the justice of God, because God cannot reward us or punish us before we choose and act. And so God honors our free will, that we are allowed the choice. And then okay. And so I want to just look for a minute, this idea that we need to act, or we make a choice, because when we don't, and we don't do anything bad, but we don't do anything good, we come to this place of spiritual indifference. And this was brought up, even in the Spirits book, in number 642, when they tell us that we are accountable for the good we don't do. So it's not just about I didn't do bad, but what good did I not do? And also there is, I believe it's in Revelations, where Jesus says, he's talking to one of the churches and he says, I see that you don't do bad, but you don't do good. And so they're kind of sitting on the fence, and he says, I spit you out of my mouth. And so, it's that idea that of, falling into spiritual indifference. And what is that? Basically, I don't care. And so, it's not like we can choose to just be in this place. So it's like we're either doing the good or we aren't. And remember that duty is a moral obligation. Okay, so here we come to the last topic. We're almost done. A theoretical summary of the driving forces behind human actions. Very quickly, what is a theoretical summary? So it's a scholarly work that explores abstract concepts. In this case, it's going to be the driving forces behind human actions, and in a specific field of knowledge. And in this case, it's Spiritism. So we're not talking about Buddhism. We're not talking about any other tradition, because it's not going to make sense. So the theoretical summaries, why did Kardec do this? So it's to advance theories, it's to promote critical thinking, prepare the groundwork for further research and reinterpret known information, express ideas in a creative form. Basically, Kardec is saying, there's more to be revealed. He knows, and to me, it shows the humility of Kardec, that he realizes he doesn't have it all. Just like, how could, he doesn't really talk directly about law and cause and effect, because that really wasn't the language of the time. So, he's kind of planting the seeds. He's starting it. He's watering these seeds. And so just that a theoretical summary is not an empirical research paper. So why? Because, the theoretical summary, he's collecting data, but he doesn't do the experiment, right? So that's why it's not. And then, so I just want to point out, in the Spirits book, there are 3 places that he has these summaries. So that's these 3 places where he's saying there's more to be revealed about this. There's more to understand. There's more to make it a tight-knit truth, I guess, if you will. And so, and I'm very thankful and honored that I got to do all 3 of them for BSH. So thank you very much. So in chapter 6, just briefly, the sensation and spirits, this is where he talks about the perispirit. And yeah, it's the bridge between the spirit and the body. And so when the body dies, the spirit continues to feel. Why? Because it is the perispirit that feels the sensations. And then when we talk about somnambulism, ecstasy, second sight, he points out that these are not necessarily mediumship, that this is loosening of the perispirit. There can be mediumship in that. So a somnambulist during that experience maybe connects with another spirit, that's mediumship, but it doesn't have to entail mediumship, that it can be a faculty in and of that own spirit. And then here we are today talking about the law of freedom and the driving force behind human actions. And here we find that what he's proposing, these driving forces are free will and the law of cause and effect, which at that time he's calling fatalism. So free will, And they say to us, anybody saying free will is talking about freedom. And so free will in the spiritual state is a choice of trials, right? So we're getting ready to come back. We're choosing, we're applying our free will in that way. As an incarnate, we're choosing to succumb or resist the temptations we chose as trials. Then education of divine laws will combat vices, modifying our intelligence. So he believes that as we educate about the divine laws, we will be more informed, therefore modifying our intelligence. And we know that intelligence always precedes morality. However, we can't impose this. We can't impose morality. We can't impose it. And that's why we know somebody who's really intelligent or has a PhD or whatever doesn't mean they're necessarily moral. So it's not like that. But as we educate ourselves, we lend ourselves to modifying our intelligence. Therefore, we are able to be moral. So free will, individual intention determines quality of resonance affinity. So again, as we use this free will, we're never alone. We're attracting, other spirits of this same level of intention, of vibration. Freedom of thought. And they remind us this is a privilege of our human species. Do we wake up every morning and say, thank God I can think? This is really a privilege of our human species. Our moral life improves as we align our will with divine laws. So the moral strength repels low order spirits. So it acts as a natural shield. The more we strengthen our morals. And we can use our will to ask God and good spirits for assistance. So we are never alone. We're never forgotten. We're never abandoned. And then as far as law of cause and effect, it supports the law of progress. It's how we can evolve. It supports human free will, which includes responsibility for choices and actions. And again, this is a take-home message. This free will is not free. It involves responsibility. Fatalism applies to the kind of physical existence of the spirit. So when we choose our trial, expiation, even a mission. So this is something we choose, and so it's not something that's imposed upon us. Fatalism applies to reincarnation, discarnation, incarnatory plans, and great sorrows. And we already heard about those that, as long as it's in alignment, we can have an effect on our plans. If we fall out of alignment, it's against God's law to kill ourselves. And we know all about the stories about the vital fluid and how we have to keep coming back and reorganize our perispirit. So there's a lot involved, and it's beyond this discussion. So humans gifted physical life, we are gifted physical life to purge our imperfections via trials. Imperfections increase suggestibility to imperfect spirit. So it's the same thing that we just said on the other side of free will. So as we increase our morality, we repel them. And as we find ourselves operating in our imperfections, we attract them to us. And that humans are rational beings who listen, judge, and freely choose. And so you might be asking, why do we need to understand this? Why is Kardec bringing this to us? Why did the spirits bring it to us? And it's just like Miss Gina told us, it's about natural freedom, thinking freely, choosing consciously, resisting lower instincts, accepting responsibility, growing spiritually. And freedom is choosing the good even when it is difficult. So we thank you, and I thank you for your attention today. And hopefully I've given us time to have comments and more sharing, because that is true learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. That was so deep. And I went right, like it's so deep. A lot of things resonated with me. But one thing that I've always struggled in life is how much, whenever I think about something that I really want, how much am I being persistent? How much of that am I being stubborn?
Mm.
You know, like what's the difference between I keep trying something that is not given to me, or should I keep trying because I still feel it? So I wanted to hear everybody's thoughts before I share where where I've landed. I wanted to hear if anyone has any comments on.
So what exactly are you asking? Like what we use as guides to help us determine?
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put that. Yeah.
There's a pride and ego reality to both sides. And so that learning learning experience of how to dig within yourself and determine, are you being prideful? Are you being egotistical? Are you holding on to something that really is, out of line with intentions, or whatever? That it's not second guessing after the fact. It's trying to get ahead of it and think it through before the free will action.
That's true.
That's my thought.
So it's funny that you asked this, Kiki, because I've been involved with this in the past couple weeks of reading some kind of spiritual thing, enlightening or whatever, and then commenting from the three different aspects of physical, soul, and spirit. So just kind of like how I physically see something, and then to talk about how I feel about it, and then to talk about a higher reality about it. And then to let that be. And then when I wake up in the morning, what do I receive? What is it that came to me? And it may not be this like automatic response, but as I've been following it over the past like couple weeks, it's been really super powerful. And I'm not like given direct answers, but it's almost like I'm given the puzzle pieces to fill it in. And it's been pretty powerful, is all I can share. So it's been very profound. In fact, one of the dreams totally shook me up. That the message was so direct. But I think it can vary. I don't think that it necessarily. But anyway, that's something I've been doing. I found very helpful.
Yeah. That's interesting.
What I do is I pray over it. And like what Theresa said, evenings is very powerful because then we take it into our consciousness in the sleep. And then I live by the maxim, then I observe. So I try not to be too attached, in other words. And I live by two maxims. One is if it's meant for me, it's going to come to me. So if it's more effortlessly flowing and I don't have to bang my head against the wall, it's the right thing. And so I don't want to struggle because then it seems like I'm working against something. And the other one is in the field before I desire something, or how much do I want to lean into it. If I'm in doubt, then I count it out. So these things have really helped me, be as clear as possible. Of course, nothing's 100% because we have our attachments, right? But it helps. It really helps. And I wanted to really thank you, Theresa. Wonderful talk, really amazing refresher. And I love how you reach out into different areas. And yeah, I don't have any other comments other than yay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I agree. It's beautiful. I have to say, God is amazing. And working, I feel we're all so blessed for Kardec and the good spirits that worked with him to bring us this message. Because we all have had difficulties and we've all questioned, am I crazy? Am I going in the right direction? How can I make this better? Looking for our answers. And they make it so clear by coming from so many directions. And it's true, like you were saying, we all think differently. And so we have to have the same question presented in different ways. And they are professionals at it. I mean, they reach our core. They help us find our answers in all of these different ways that they come at us. And I so appreciate it, even when it comes to our difficulties, mostly because that is where it can make or break us when we're in a difficult situation. And they're telling us part of this is our fault. Let's work through it. You get over it. It's not too difficult for you to challenge this difficulty,
Mm,
And and then when we go through it, we can help our children go through it, or whomever comes to us and asks us questions, we can help them go through it. So it's just fascinating to me. I love it. And it was good, very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. And especially when it talks about failures, that really reaches me, because a lot of young people feel like they're failures because they're bumping up against others, or even kids that's on TV. You can't compare yourself with them. This is your journey. They don't want to sit down and read right now. They got their whole life ahead of them, and they feel that's the most important thing they got to do right now because they haven't been taught any different. And so all I can do is sit and wait
mm.
until they come to me. That's all I can do. It's, God's in charge, as they say. Anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Teresa, this is one of those presentations where at, at least I will go back and look at it again
Mm,
and freeze it and snapshot it and turn it into something I can print and stick on the wall. There's the free will one just froze me. It was so good.
mm. Thank you. Yeah.
I like the to us to learn history on spiritism because we remember when the Kardec was invited, a group already of mediums was have all these books and notes they have been putting together for a long time, for I think 2, 3 years before Kardec came and organized.
Mm,
So here, um, how do I say? We gave him the credit, but he never accept that is exactly like Chico Xavier. He never accept any credit. He said always the credit is to the spirits.
mhm,
So it's the organization of all of these for those who really work and have the freedom now to accept that in the incarnation, like you said, we never planning a project that would be failure. No,
mm,
we always making a plan, a project, a family, a marriage, a company, a profession. Everything we do, we prepare it. So life shows us, gave us the freedom to choose who we want to be, how we want to show up ourselves here in the physical world. Remember, when the spirit go back to the spiritual world, many, I would not say mostly, but many are conscious after going back to the spiritual world. So they can be very smart, very lovely, sweet, everything. We can have as an example, who has read the book of Alcione, we will see a spirit of hierarchy does not need to reincarnate on the earth. We see Mother Mary, a spirit of hierarchy, does not need to reincarnate again. So many of the spirit have the free will, no, to come back to help and support without their evolution. And we will see on those books, the spirit remind them to why you need to go back to that trial because earth is dangerous, no? Earth is dangerous. So when we come back here, we come back here for our own selves first, or we come back as a mission, as a missionary, like we have Divaldo, Chico Xavier, but they use the mission, like Alcione too. She said, I have something that I feel in my heart that I should go back. Like I feel I owe the humankind something. I want to participate in that trial with other family member, friends that she wanna help them, support them. So you see, we choose everything. We have this freedom to do good or to allow the others' energy to come into our life, like Teresa was giving her example, the way she planned meditating, open herself, and we open, we do everything. We have forgive me, I'm not bringing politicians here, but we have this Renee Good right now, passing for all this situation. It is sad the way the divide, the division about what she did, and about her. Let's see, like Teresa said, uh, who commit suicide? They planned that? No, they did not plan that. Renee Good, does she preparing that? No. The police guy, does he prepare to be here and kill people? No. It is all the consequences of life in our daily life that we must be conscious, be aware in what stage of mind we are every day. Is the law of attraction will be change our course and the path that we on the missionaries of the light. I love that when the ministry of reincarnation. Remember, we have psychologists, we have higher educating people, engineer, and helping you to make a project of life, isn't it? So you will decide and have even what illness are you carrying, you have in your life. And because all the accumulation that we have been in our earthly trials, we will don't bring them once to be purified once. Does not work because that is, Divaldo said, Chico said, Emmanuel said, or Mike Ivanhoe said, all these great spiritual people has bring the message to us. We will be come back to earth still many, many, many times because earth is a school. It is the blessed place to us as a spirit to need to educating ourselves to materialize. I believe Teresa brought this in the speech today too, because earth is an important place, is an important school for us to come and to feel in our own skin, our trials, our illness, our pain. Because remember, the spirit doesn't suffer.
Mm.
You can go through fire, through snow, through cold, through heat, through whatever. The spirit doesn't suffer. The mind, the confusion of the mind causing all the disturbance, and the free will. For me, this is a very important topic. What we are doing with our free will. Why God's allowed us to do whatever we want. Remember, Jesus taught us how to pray, how to communicate with God. He came as an example. He does not need to come either, but he loves us. So the main message of Jesus on the earth was what? Teach us how to love. And the second was teaching, guiding us. So if we know his teachings very well, very close, and bring it to every day in our lives, our free will be help us to evolve one step more than we had planned to come. Remember, if you do good, if you go through your whole project of life, I don't believe we do 100%, maybe 50. I think that is great if I can do 50%, no? But we have to evaluate ourselves, where we are today, using our free will. Being an example, I think someone thought about, Eugene said, if I do good for myself, I'll be a good example for my family, for others. No? And remember, the kingdom of God is the justice of heaven and earth. And remember, living today, the problems, the situation of today. I think Sunshine brought that other day. The year start what? Empty. Is a 365 empty pages. So how we are planning to write our book in this new year with ourselves. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the comments. And I really appreciate those who have been dedicating their lives that time. They were persecuted. They were persecuted. They suffer. The books was burned to come today to our knowledge today. And I love Spiritism because I love the freedom of what? Freedom. To be free in this world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sister. Thank you, everyone. Theresa, again, this was beautiful. Thank you so much for touching our hearts, for bringing so much for us to reflect. If anyone has any additional questions or comments, we can turn to Theresa by the end of the meeting. For now, we'll have 2 minutes break. Make sure you have your bottle of water with you, and we will continue for the second part. 2 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, sister.
Thank you.